What's up guys, Joey here at schoolofmotion.com. Thanks for watching the video. Today I want to try and keep this really short, and I want to do something a little different, which is give you guys a quick little tip or two that you can use right away on your next job to impress your boss or your client, or just to make the next video a little bit cooler. Alright, so what I'm going to show you is an abbreviated version of how I made this animation here. So when you watch an animation, it's pretty simple. The design's very simple. But what I hope you noticed about it is that there's a lot of extra animation going on besides the traditional, parts moving up and down and left and right and scaling back and forth. And that type of animation is called secondary animation. So secondary animation, you can think of, it's like, if you had a doll and you kind of shook it, its arms would lag a little bit. Here I am flapping like a bird. Its arms would lag a little bit behind the body. So secondary animation is animation caused by the primary movement, and it usually lags a little bit. And that can be, things like parts that are attached to one object that kind of move with it, but kind of lagging. It can also be, parts of an object kind of bending and stretching while the rest of it is kind of already moved on. So I'm going to show you two techniques, and hopefully you'll be able to use them right away. So let's hop into After Effects. So here is just a couple of layers, and this is sort of where I started when I built the last animation that I just showed you guys. So the first thing I want to show you is how I got the main part of the logo, this kind of greenish square. I want to show you how I got that to come into the frame and bend as it came in. Okay, so sort of like the body of it is lagging a little bit behind the rest of it. So the first thing I did was I tried to think about a cool way for this to animate on, and I thought that if it came on like a long thin rectangle, that would give me a cool opportunity to have it bend. Alright, so the way I made this box was with just a layer, and then I made a mask for it, right? And you can see that the mask, it was just a rectangular mask, but I added points at the midpoint between each side. Knowing that I was going to want to, possibly have this thing bend, this makes it a whole lot easier, okay? And I'll show you how to do that in a second. So I started out by stretching it out. So let's have it be maybe 150 on X, maybe 20 on Y. So you just get this long, thin rectangle. Maybe it could even be a little bit longer than that. Okay, cool. So let's start by having it fly into the screen. All right, so we're working in 24 here. And actually, we're not working in 24. We're working in 30. I'd rather work in 24. There we go. All right, so let's go forward 12 frames. Hit P to bring up the position. And I've already separated the dimensions here. And if you haven't watched my intro to curves in After Effects tutorial, I highly recommend you do that because I'm going to kind of fly through it on this. So I'm going to put a keyframe here, go down here, drag this guy down, and I'm going to have this guy overshoot just a little bit. So I'm going to go back 2 frames and drag him. Oh boy. Notice my tablet tends to double click a lot more than it should. Here we go. All right, so it goes a little bit too high, then comes down. Hop into the curve editor. Let's take a look at this. Okay, I'm gonna have this thing shoot in really fast, hang at the top, hang there. There we go. All right, let's do a quick RAM preview and see what we got. Okay, nice. So it feels a little bit stiff, and that's because even if this was a piece of wood or something, it would bend if it was shooting into the frame that fast. And that bending, that is actually secondary animation. Even though it's not technically a separate object, it's animation that is caused by the primary animation, which is this movement. Okay. Now, how can we get this thing to bend? You could do it with effects, and you might be able to make that work. But sometimes the best way to control this is to just get in there and do it manually by animating the mask. So that's what we're going to do. So let's first go to the end here and open up the mask properties and put a keyframe on mask path. All right, now I'm going to hit U so I can see all of the keyframes at once. So when it's flying up in the air, okay, at its fastest point, it's going to be dragging the most. Okay, so what I can do is look at the curves in the Y position, and you can just kind of figure out where is it the steepest. Well, it's kind of the steepest at the beginning, and then it slows down just a little bit. It probably really slows down right about here. So that's where I'm going to put the mask keyframe. All right, so I'm gonna hit period so I can pop in here. And I'm just going to grab these 2 points, and I'm going to hold shift and knock them down a little bit. Okay? Now, obviously that doesn't look right. We need these to be curves. We don't want them to be stiff like that. So if you hit G, which brings up the pen tool, and you just hover it over over any point that's selected, then hold Option. You see how it changes to this kind of hollow upside down V shape? If you click that, it will then sort of set these Beziers to be either completely sharp or stretch them out quite a ways so that it's really curved. If I do it again, you'll see it'll snap them back to. In other programs, this is called cusping them, and this rounds them out. So let's just take a look at that. That actually looks okay. What I like to do is adjust the if you think of this as the outside of the shape, and this would be the inside of the shape, this point here, the inside I would tuck these in just a little bit. All right, so it's shooting up, and then when it gets right before it stops, it's going to basically come back to its resting position, and then it's going to overshoot it at this point. All right, so now we need the overshoot keyframe. So let's come back up here, and let's push it the other way. And I'm just adjusting these. All right, so it comes in, overshoots, lands. And I think what I want to happen is for it to overshoot, then overshoot the other way a little bit, and then land. All right, so I'm going to put one more mask keyframe over here. And this keyframe, I'm going to have it overshoot back down just a little bit. All right, and now I'm going to ease these keyframes in, and let's see what it looks like now. Okay, so it's actually working fairly well. Now, with secondary animation, generally, keyframes shouldn't line up like this because secondary animation generally happens a little bit after the primary animation, okay? So I'm just going to take these keyframes and I'm going to slide them forward in time, 2 frames. All right, and let's see what that looks like. And you can see now it feels a little bit more jiggly, you know, and it kind of is a little more cartoony. And the bigger a delay between the primary and secondary animation, the cartoonier it feels. So I just moved everything back 1 frame. All right, and now it's starting to feel a little bit better. Okay, and I could nitpick this. I would kind of want this. I would want it to come back down a little bit further here, but you get the idea. That's actually working pretty well. All right, so then the next part of the animation is this long, thin rectangle sucks in and becomes a square. And as it does that, the sides of it kind of pucker in and blow it out and do interesting things like that. So let's move forward 3 frames, and then let's look at the scale. All right, so we're going to put a keyframe on scale, and let's go forward 8 frames. So I'm going to jump forward 10, and I'm holding, basically the way I'm doing that, if you guys don't know, hold shift, hit page down, goes 10 frames forward, and then back 2 frames, page up twice. So first I want this to turn into a vertical rectangle. So right now the scale is 175 on X, 20 on Y. I'm going to just reverse those. 20 on X, 175 on Y. All right. Let's easy ease those and let's just see what that looks like. All right, so on its own, it looks like that. Okay. I want to mess with the curves a little bit. I want them to be a little bit more exaggerated. So I'm going to pull these handles out. Okay, so we've got the beginning of something kind of interesting here. Okay, now as this shape is coming in, I want that same secondary animation to happen. Okay, so what we need to do is adjust the mask again. So let's open up the mask keyframes, and you do that by pushing M. Brings up your mask path. So let's put a keyframe here. Let's hit U so we can see all of our keyframes. And when we get to the end here, the mask is going to go back to normal. So let's put a keyframe there. In the middle, so you got to kind of think about what's actually happening. So if this thing is sucking in, this side and this side are flying inward very quickly. So these points here are going to lag behind a little bit. Kind of like that. And because we have already pulled these Bezier points out, over here, you can see that it actually already looks like a nice curve. So as it sucks in, and then it finishes. And so we want it to kind of overshoot a little bit. So let's see here. Let's just preview this and see what it looks like. And as I said before, the secondary animation, which is this mask path, should be offset maybe 1 frame. Okay, so now if we were going to overshoot the secondary animation, we could fake that by animating. We can animate this point and this point in a little bit. So why don't we do that? Why don't we why don't we take this keyframe here, scoot it down a little ways. Let's copy this keyframe, and I'm going to take this point and scoot it in, and then I'm going to take this point and scoot it in, so that it overshoots in a little bit and then has to re-stretch itself out. Okay, now if we jump out and look at that. Now you can see how it makes that really simple scaling move feel a lot better, and there's a lot more going on. And this doesn't take very long. I mean, it'll take you a little while to get the hang of thinking about motion in these terms. But this is an easy way to make a very simple move feel pretty cool. All right, so let's finish this move now. We're gonna go forward 4 frames, and now we're gonna scale this to its correct size. So let's go 8 frames. We'll do 100, 100. All right, so let's take a look at this part of the move. All right, that's pretty boring. So let's adjust the curves. Just gonna pull these way out like this. So now it's a little more of a popping move. Okay, and I'm not going to deal with the mask on this part of the move because I want to get to the next part of this tutorial. So when this pops out, all right, what I want to have is the little triangle logo appear in some cool way. So what I did was I took the box and I animated the scale from small to big. So let's look at the scale keyframes here, just by hitting S. So put a keyframe here. Let's go forward. Let's do 6 frames. Okay, and let's make this thing grow to 150. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, feels slow. We're gonna have to adjust the curves. But another thing I want to do is let's actually move this down 2 frames, go forward 2 frames, and we're gonna do a little bit of anticipation keyframe here. So we're gonna go from 100 to 95 to 150, and it's a simple little thing. But what it does is, especially when we get in and we make the curves feel better, it makes that movement feel a little bit more deliberate because the square is going to kind of set itself up for this big move. It's kind of nice to sometimes have things shrink just for a couple of frames right before they grow. And it works the same way if things are moving left to right. Have them move have them move right just a little bit and then shift left and shoot off to the right. You can kind of have it. It almost feels like it's taking a step before it, comes forward. Just a nice little trick. All right, so once this thing shoots out, I want the triangle to do the same thing. So I'm going to turn this triangle layer on here, and it's already parented to the box. So what I'm going to do is put a keyframe here on the scale, so it's right in line with the box's keyframe. Then I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to set this to 0. All right, and now I'm going to hit Option and the left bracket to clip that layer to right there, so it doesn't exist in time before then. Those are great hotkeys. Option, left bracket, right bracket. It basically trims your layer to wherever your playhead is. Okay, so now let's adjust the curves on the scale for the triangle. All right, so we get that nice pop on that. All right, and you can see right now the triangle scales up at the same time as the box, okay? If we're using secondary animation, all we got to do is delay that 1 frame. All right, and maybe it needs to be a little more. Let's do 2 frames. And all of a sudden, now it's starting to feel like the box is kind of throwing the triangle at us. All right, that's secondary animation right there. The triangle's animation appears to be driven by the square's animation. Now we can help this by adding a little bit of an overshoot. So let's go forward 2 frames, and let's add scale keyframes on both of those. And then let's just go into the curve editor and see if we can do these there. So let's go to the box and just have this keyframe overshoot just a little bit. And then we'll do the same thing with the triangle. This is what I love about the curve editor. It's just you can really see exactly what it's doing. Okay, so now if I scoot this forward 2 frames, you could even go more here because it's so quick. There you go. All right, so now it feels like a little bit, it's almost a little bit springy. All right, like compare this, where everything happens at once, to this, which has a 3-frame delay. It's just a little bit more interesting to watch. And then, there were a couple times, I think, in my animation where I did things like this. I would have the box rotate. Let's put a rotation keyframe. Let's have it rotate. Let's have it just, kind of shake itself back and forth. So it's going to go 3 frames back this way, and then 6 frames this way. And then we'll go, just kind of eyeballing this. We're probably going to have to adjust this. But let's say we did something like this, right? All right, so it kind of shakes itself like that. All right, I'm not going to mess with the curves. That's actually going to work fine for this. What if I just copy and paste these keyframes onto the triangle? All right, so now we've got the rotations happening in sync. And then I delay this. Just a frame. You see what it does? It now feels a little bit springy, like that triangle's on like a loose screw or something. And if you delay it another frame, then it starts to feel really jiggly and wobbly. All right? That is secondary animation right there, folks. And it's a really easy trick. All you're doing is kind of offsetting keyframes. But really quickly, you can build up animations that feel like they have a lot of life to them. And, I'm a big proponent of sound design. I think that, sound is literally half of a motion graphics piece. Sometimes the more important half, frankly. And with animations like this, they are just ripe for sound effects because there's so many little nuances of movement that you could catch and do little things with sound. So next time someone asks you to animate a logo or do something with a simple little design, you saw how fast we put this little piece together. You could very easily do something like this. And you're going to find that, especially when you're starting out, this type of detailed animation work isn't really being done. Especially when you're talking about those lower end jobs that don't have huge budgets to put big teams of people on. But this is stuff you can do to make those projects look awesome and look like the things you see on Motionographer. So I hope you guys learned something today about secondary animation. Please check out schoolofmotion.com and join our mailing list. We like to send out deals and special offers and things like that. And obviously we'll tell you about new tutorials before everybody else. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time.